Well, hello there, Mickey. Happy New Year.
Hey, Michelle. Happy New Year.
And to those of you listening, welcome back to Michelle and Mickey's Performance Playbook. It is 2026, and I actually haven't been saying Happy New Year that much to people. Like,
I haven't
yep, another
either.
year. We're doing it again.
Yep.
Back on the train.
Yep. Yep.
And that said, what we want to talk about today is largely along the lines of, regardless of how we feel about it, it is a new year and it does tend to be a good time to set new goals. And that's what a lot of people want to do is we want to set new goals and whether you call them resolutions or not, doesn't actually matter. But largely something that I've learned over the years is that setting new goals without doing some reflection on what have you done in the past and like what have you tried to do? What did you used to believe that you don't believe anymore? Reflecting in that way is a super important part of the process of being able to set appropriate goals going forward, right? So we're not just pie in the sky. And what I've seen is that I do have some athletes that set the same goals every year. And one of the questions that I sent out, like in a post, like end of year reflection and then New Year's goals or something, was along the lines of like, what do you want to change in the coming year? And then a second part of that question was, what will need to change in your life in order for that thing to be able to be changed, right? Because especially when it's like if you're setting the same goals every year and finding that you're not accomplishing them, then there's likely something large happening under the surface that is preventing you from being able to make whatever changes to do that thing.
Right.
Anyway, that was a long way of saying that,
Or,
like what we're doing. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I was going to say the only other thing, or the aspect of that, if they're setting the same goal every year, but they're not attaining that goal or not even making, amenable, incremental progress towards
Mm-hmm.
it, right? Because there's sometimes goals are really big, and so they do take multiple years, and it actually takes a very dedicated, wise athlete, right, to chip away at it year after year, right, to whatever their goal might be. The other aspect of there being something underlying, like what do they need to change in their life that's not working for them in this pursuit? I would say the other thing that I often ask athletes in that same vein is like, what are your values? And is this goal actually aligned with what's important to you? Because that's something that if it's not, like, let's say, for example, I want to, like, what's a common one? Like, I want to increase my FTP, whatever. But their values are more at this time in their life. Their values are being there for their grandkids, being willing to pick up and, drive to help their parents out who might be sick. Or maybe it's like, I'm really dedicated to my job right now. So the values, right, tend to be like kind of bigger picture, longer term, important things in our life that can change, right, depending on the season of our life. But a lot of times I feel that sometimes athletes will set kind of a sexy goal, but it's actually not in line with what they actually care about in the very moment, And so, and it kind of does speak to like their underlying life, but they haven't seen it that way. They're kind of viewing it, there's just a misalignment, right? Of like what's important versus like what do you think is important from like a goal perspective. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to throw that out there. But
Yeah.
that reflection component is huge, right? Either looking at
Mm-hmm.
your life in a deeper sense or analyzing your values in terms of like, is what I'm setting out to do here really aligned with what's important to me at a deep level?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah,
is what's important to me now the same as what was important to me before, right? Like, so largely like what
right.
has changed. So yeah, like that can lead into what, Mickey and I want to chat about is along the lines of there are things that maybe we used to believe to be true that now over, because of several factors, it could be like learning more. It could be a change in like our environment or just mostly it's like the things that I've changed my mind about over the years is largely because of the experiences that I have had where I've been witnessing and watching the patterns and learning the thing and seeing new evidence and realizing that like, oh, there were some things that I used to believe that now I realize are not actually correct.
Hmm.
And it can be a bit of a touchy subject here because I feel like largely what we're seeing around, I don't know if it's just our country, if it's the world or what, but there's can we see people all the time who have their baseline belief and then they're presented with new evidence that maybe contradicts it or maybe just takes the belief further or maybe just shifts it sideways. New information could either completely dispel that belief to be like, that was never true to start with and you were wrong from the beginning. Or it could be like, this new evidence shows that you kind of had it, but it actually goes further than that, or it's like shifted over a little bit, or it was almost that but not quite. Or it could be like it goes deeper than that, there's an underlying reason why that thing, whatever. But like what I've seen a lot in our society, unfortunately, is that
Mm-hmm.
people who have a really deep belief, and then like they're presented evidence that that belief isn't helping them anymore, or it's not actually true, and the people will be like, well, then that evidence can't be right because my belief must be right. And what we want to do today is dispel that myth by being the example of sharing with you things that we used to believe were true that we no longer believe are true. And largely, and so it's interesting, and I'll just share this. I'm not going to go into all of it, but we decided on this topic a couple of weeks ago. And so I've been reflecting and brainstorming. And when I go out on my walks, I'm like, what were some other things that I used to believe were true? And what I realized is that while the list that I created for this podcast is largely around endurance sport and coaching and, coaching athletes and that kind of thing, that there are in every area of my life, I will be 52 next month. And in every area of my life, there are things that I used to believe that I do not believe anymore. And I largely
Mm-hmm.
see that as like a really healthy thing to be able to change your mind, to be able to grow and expand and like take on new evidence and be like, oh, you know what? I was wrong about that. And admitting that I was wrong about that is not actually a weakness, as some people
Mm-hmm.
would perceive it as. Like, once you stake your foot in the sand somewhere and like, this is what I believe, like if you're ever to back away from that, then like that's a sign that you're weak or whatever. I'm like, I don't think that at all. I think it's a sign of like, I have an open, curious mind and I like to take in new information, and as I learn more, I do better. And this is a really key part. I do not beat myself up for the decisions I made when I didn't know what I know now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right? So I mean,
absolutely. That's
there were
tough.
things that
It's
it's like
really
I
tough.
thought
Yeah.
I knew, I thought it, and I was doing the best I could, and that I was wrong at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really easy to be like, well, the reason I don't want to look back at that is because I'm so embarrassed at how wrong I was that I don't want to like even revisit that thing. And so I'll just pretend that I was right the whole time. But then you're like perpetuating the harm instead of actually fixing it. And so with that in mind, so I've made a whole list of the things that like, here's things that like I used to believe that I don't believe anymore. But this one is, maybe I'm going to start with like the most, I don't want to say the most embarrassing, like for me personally right now, like this is the most cringeworthy one for me, knowing
Okay.
what I know
Okay.
now of me being wrong. So we're just kick it off with a big one. This, I don't know how long ago this was, like 10 or 12 years ago. I got an email from an athlete who like was really freaking out about open water swimming, right? Like afraid of open water, right? I'm afraid of the ocean. I have panic attacks when I go in the ocean. I don't know how to get over this, blah, blah, blah. And I was in my phase of like, buck up, step
Mm-hmm.
up to plate, just do the thing, just get over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not kidding you. My advice was like, you just need to get over it. You just need to swim more.
Mm-hmm.
Just put yourself out there and get over it. And you'll see that like, it's fine. Like, you just have to do it. You just have to make yourself do it. And
Mm-hmm.
the more you do it, the better it'll get. And like, while on this, like, I mean, that's wrong in so many ways. I mean, it's right in like one way. It's right in one way. So, but knowing what I know now about like our nervous system, about how past experiences shape the way our brain views safety and like safe situations, and about at the time, like I didn't know what I know now about like breathing and about like nervous system development and all that. And I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, there's no chance in the world if somebody said like, I have anxiety and panic attacks in the ocean, like the very last thing I would say to them is be like, we usually need to get in there and do it more. It's like, but that's what I did. So like,
Yeah.
like I doubt that athlete is listening to this podcast, but if you are, I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was the wrong advice on my part. I know better now. And like, I'm not going to beat myself up for the way that I handled it at the time, because like, that's what I knew at the time. Like, that was how I was. I didn't personally have a fear of the ocean. I did not understand that other people would have a fear of the ocean. And my solution to anything was just dive straight in and do the thing and buck up and get over it. Like,
Gotcha.
that was
Yeah.
my solution. And now I'm like, okay, how would I deal with that particular situation now? I would help the athlete understand their nervous system, how using their breath allows them to calm at a very deep level, about how they could look like think back to past experiences of like, did you have an experience in water that was scary for you? Right? Like, let's talk about that experience. Let's examine that. Right. And then I would physically be with them in person the next time they go to
That'd
the
be
ocean.
good.
And I
Yeah.
would use my energy. And I've done this before, like since then, where I've been with a group where I knew there was somebody who was like really afraid, right? And others who kind of weren't. And so I've used like my positive, safe, happy energy, like the ocean is my happy place, right? And
Hmm.
so like helping them feel that and letting, and this is, it sounds like woo woo, agey, freaky, whatever, but like I do believe this is the case now, is that like if I can use my energy to transfer over to other people. Like if I cultivate it and make it strong enough, like, or if my energy is not that strong, I will take on somebody else's nervous energy. Like I'll start to feel that. And so if I know that I'm dealing with someone who is afraid, I cultivate my energy first, and then
Hmm.
like I literally like gift that over, and if they're willing to accept it, then they're like, okay, like this must be safe because she seems really calm and safe, right? So then they
Hmm.
can go with me and we can just swim out to that first buoy, right? And then we're just going to breathe and we're just going to relax out here, and like we're going to notice the good things, and we're going to like just little by little, like, so I would be way less hardcore about it, way more understanding about it, and at the same time taking the steps like in a much less harsh way of like the
Hmm.
exposure to that environment, showing like literally with the intention of like, we're going to show your brain that this is safe,
Hmm.
right? And then when
Hmm.
you do that,
Yeah.
then you'll be able to like manage this environment and feel safer in it, and examine the story that you're telling yourself that made it feel like it's not a safe place for you before. Because if you don't examine that story, right, then it's like the panic attacks can continue to happen. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that was super cringeworthy, and now I'm like, I can't even believe that's who I was. That was who I was. So not anymore,
Well,
and it's okay to
yeah.
change.
Literally is a sign of wisdom and I think courage, right? To be open to changing your mind
Hmm.
about things. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And I think that
yeah,
like
yeah,
even examining or like being able to admit that like that
yes,
was something that I did as like a coach in an authority figure position that was really crappy. It was not, and it was unintentional on my part, right? Like I did
right,
not
yeah,
mean to, you know, it may have done more harm to that athlete than good, right? Me saying those things to her, because like she may have been like, what's wrong with me? Or like, you know what I mean? It perpetuates this like,
yeah, right,
why am I the only one? Or I must be weak, or I, you know, it would perpetuate a story that that athlete would continue to tell themselves in their head. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But being able to admit, like
hmm,
me being able to admit that what I did was wrong is the path to me changing and being better in the future. And
right,
so I'm like, I
yeah,
feel like we want leaders, coaches, parents, authority figures, all to be able to say, you know what, when I used to believe this thing, I acted like that. And now I don't anymore. And I can see that what I did was wrong. And going forward, I'm going to do things differently because I know better now.
right,
So
yeah,
I think that being
yeah,
able to admit that's like super key. And I just mostly, if
yeah,
anything, I want to encourage people to be like, not afraid. Like we're human, we make mistakes, we all do.
yeah, yeah,
We try to
yeah,
do better when we know better. So that's what this
yeah,
whole podcast is about. And now we can
yeah,
go on to like, what else?
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have many as well.
Hmm.
Sticking to coaching, I would say one of the most overarching things that I believed when I was a young coach, newer coach, was that if I learned enough, if I was giving enough, if I communicated enough, if I accommodated enough, if I listened enough, right, I could coach anyone and help everyone. I mean, how naive is that, right? Through many years, I have learned, sometimes in a very painful way, that that is not the case at all for a variety of
Hmm.
reasons. But I think yeah, big aha now that I have, this is not like a one time, I learned this. Like, yeah, I think it's something you kind of, for me, I have
Hmm.
had to have many experiences over the years to now come into a very solid kind of more firm understanding that I can't help everyone, that I don't have the skills to help everyone. And for some that might actually mean that I'm not a therapist, right? Like there are some issues with some people that they need, more an expertise, that someone that's done years in a PhD, right, work of therapy, right? And that's just, one example, but there's many. And it has to do with everything from an athlete's mindset to how a lot of it is not even just like mindset or do we mesh well. It's like, how open are they to changing their minds? And I've learned over the years that folks that are very closed-minded or have very firm views of what they are capable of or aren't capable of are their biggest limiters. And it doesn't matter how good of a coach what I learn, how I talk to them, how much I support them. Like, I'm not a good coach for them because I can't get them to make the progress that they want to see. I don't have the tools. So I think that's been
Hmm.
so at this point in my coaching career, I will let athletes go if I feel that I'm not helpful to them. I may not be like completely open as to all of the exact reasons why, but yeah, I think that was, it's a little hard to admit that, I think, because as a coach, you want to be able to help everyone. I really felt that if I was caring enough, that if I was, committed enough, that I could help everyone, and that's false. I cannot do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
It actually shows, I think, an ego that I had as a young coach that I don't have anymore. I actually don't think. I think
Hmm.
it's some people could look at it as that I'm becoming more egotistical in some way, but it's not that. I think thinking you can help everyone actually is a sign, like, that's a false sense of reality.
Only I can do it. I can fix it, and only me, Mickey.
Right. Like, no.
I'm the
Yeah.
savior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I don't mean it like that, but I meant
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
I
had an
know.
interview with an athlete, and even though I'm like, I'm not really sure, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can help, and now I'm like, let's do a trial. We'll see if it works.
I think
Yeah, that was
along
a big
those
one.
lines, it's a really good point. And I even think back to a time where, so like I've been a coach for, I mean, this is, I guess, am I going on my 18th or 19th year? I think my 18th year. But I've played both sides of this like throughout, right? I mean, there were times where I was the athlete who had a coach while I was also coaching.
Hmm.
Right. So like and that was really helpful for me in a lot of ways to like when I was the athlete and when I hired my own coach. And a lot of that was because
Hmm.
it helped me understand things from the athlete's perspective, right? It was like it helped me examine, like, what do I expect of my coach? How do I expect them to react in these different ways? Like how quickly should they react? Like what kinds of things should they be saying? Because I knew sort of like what irritated me. Like when the coach did X,
Mm.
Y, or Z, and I got irritated, then it was like, oh, I need to remember, like, I don't want to do that to my athletes. That's also
Hmm.
assuming that everybody's like me, which I know that they're not. There was a time, and it's really interesting now, because I had a coach at one point, and again, 10, 12, 8, I don't know, however, a while ago. And this coach was trying to teach me this concept that at the time I was not ready to hear it. And I thought she was wrong, right? So as she's telling
Hmm.
me this
Hmm.
thing, and what that was a lot, because I was the kind of athlete that I subscribed. So maybe this is another thing that I've learned, and this will be the whole story. I used to think that more is more, that you should work to
Hmm.
your capacity just about every day.
Hmm.
And the harder you worked, the more result you're going to get out of that. And that like suffering was required all the time. And if you weren't ready to suffer, it's because like you just were weak minded and you needed to
Hmm.
just buck up and do more, but like really work pretty much to your capacity all the time. I mean, like I was the athlete that got in and raced my warm up in swimming, like every time. Like I would get in and swim 1,000 and be like, how fast did I do that 1,000? Like I wanted to know, I wanted to beat my time from last week every week. Like I was that athlete. And I thought that was the way. And at the time I was swimming pretty well. So it was hard to argue with, right? You know what I mean? So it was like I was getting results from operating that way, which is like, and when that's happening, then it's going to lead you to believe that like I'm on to something, right? I'm on the right track here. But I had a coach at one point tell me that I should be more picky and choosy about like when my moments were going to be, right? So she was basically like, stop trying to win all your workouts. Like, stop trying to work so hard all the time. Like, sometimes just let yourself go easy. Save your best efforts for race day. Don't do those in training. And I was like, what? No, like I can't do it in my mind. I can't do it
Hmm.
in a race unless I've done it in training. And like, I
Hmm.
need to then go do it in training. And now, and it was interesting because like when she tried for probably 2 years to like teach me that point, and I like rebelled against it the whole time. Like I just don't think that's right. I genuinely didn't believe it was right, and I didn't do it, and I continued to race poorly. Like I would race worse than I trained.
Mm.
And then in the years past, right? So, and the reason that I make that point, Mickey, is because she tried really hard to get it through to me, and it wasn't her fault that she couldn't, right? Like that was me as an athlete on the other side of that, like not being ready to hear it. And what's interesting is that now, like, so I'm coaching these high school kids, right? And I'm trying to now impart that same lesson on them. And they're like 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And I'm watching some of them like win workouts, right? Like they're going too hard too often. And I'm telling them that it's genuinely in your best interest to slow down sometimes. Go slower, go easier here. Save it for that effort. Work there. Don't give 100% at every workout. And I have a couple of my like high achieving kids, and they look at me when I say that like I have three heads. Like I'm like out on another planet. Like, who
Mm-hmm.
is this coach? Do you know what you're talking about? And like I've said to them, I know that you don't understand this now. It's okay. I'm going to keep saying it to you. And at some point, it might be decades from now, you're going to be like, you're going to realize that lesson. You're going to realize it's true. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I had a coach in high school and she tried to teach me that. My swim coach, what was her name? I can't remember, but like she was
Yeah.
trying to teach me that I didn't have to work hard all the time in order to do it like fast, on the day that it mattered. And I'm like, so it like, and I think because of like my own experience of like being on both sides of that equation, right? And like now understanding like, oh, that coach was trying to teach me that the whole time. Like I was not a coachable athlete in that moment. Like she couldn't teach it to me. And now that I'm trying to teach it to others, when they don't get it, I'm like, it's okay. Like I'm going to keep, and at some point you're going to be ready for this lesson. And when you are, you're going to look back and be like, oh yeah, that coach was right. Cause like, I'll look back and be like, she was right. So
There's also the reality of, we have to learn things many, many, many times. It's not like,
yeah.
even in basic, whatever field of study, right? Like you have to sometimes learn concepts like numerous times for them to actually stick. So that's
Or
part of the
have the
life
negative
situation.
consequence
Yeah.
yourself. Like
Right.
sometimes there's a like I
Yeah.
had to experience for myself what it was like to actually execute training in the way that she was talking about. And so like just to finish that whole point about like what I used to believe that it was go hard or go home. Right. And now
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, it's way more nuanced than that. And there's like these different intensity factors, and like it's really important to be intentional about like what am I trying to achieve today in the workout, and then making sure that
Hmm.
you have the amount of discipline to go either as easy as you need to go or as hard as you need to go, either way, in order to achieve the outcome of the intention of the workout. And like
Hmm.
so in a big picture way, like I'm way more attuned to that now.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I will tell, like, even with the swimmers in the pool, they slow down. I want you to go slower. And they're like, they look at me like, what? I've like never in my life had a coach tell me to go slower. And I'm like, no, I want you to go easier, right? We have 10 of these to do. Go easier.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then at the end of, oh, okay. But anyways, that is a big lesson that I've learned, is it like, but let me caveat that, because it's not like, okay, so like this whole, remember the idea, and again, this was a while back, that like more is more.
Yeah.
Do
Oh
you
yeah.
remember like when I
I
was
think it's
more is
still a
more?
little bit, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
around.
So more is more. And I used to think that that was the case. Now I understand that there's nuance to the more is more
Hmm.
idea, right? That so like there are cases where more is more. More is more as long as the intensity is one where you are not creating lots of lactate, right?
Yep.
Like if you're in like a
Yep.
fat burning state,
Yep.
then
That's
whatever you're doing, swim, bike, run, if you're in a fat burning state, more is more. You're unlikely to hurt yourself by doing too much work in that low zone
yeah.
area, right?
Yep.
Like
Totally.
unlikely to hurt
Yeah.
yourself. So more can be more in that case. Where more is not more is when your easy meter is miscalibrated. And so you think
Hmm.
you're going easy, but really you're pushing tempo or threshold. Or you just believe that you have to, the only way to get faster is to go as fast as you can every day, right? And like in that way, you will get sick, you will get injured, you will burn out, you will not progress, you will not race as fast as you could have if you
Hmm.
would have modulated the intensity in your training appropriately. And I think while I always understood, so here's the thing, even as a young coach, I understood that as a concept. I did not understand it as a practice.
Hmm. Hmm.
right? I mean, like you can
Yeah.
learn it in a
Yeah.
classroom and they teach you this thing and like stress and recovery and rest and intensity and zone 1 and zone 5 and blah, 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 right? Like you can sit in a classroom, you can read the book, you can learn all those things. But then when you actually apply it in the day to day practice of training, what does it look like? And that's where I had it screwed up earlier of like not
Hmm.
understanding what like the intensity zones really meant and the
Hmm.
benefit that you would get from working out in the different intensity zones and how much time should you spend in this zone versus that zone or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's another sort of what I
Yeah.
used
Used
to
to.
believe versus what I believe now. Now I like,
Yeah.
so to be very clear, now I believe more is more. You cannot overdo the easy part as much as time and energy in your life allow easy stuff. If you default to easy every time, like that, you're not going to hurt yourself. And then sometimes targeted on purpose, we're doing specific intervals like at or above threshold, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the combination of those two is the way. Like, what is the exact right combination? That is where it's like,
It
well, it depends on your
depends. Yeah.
goal, and that depends on all the things. But in a general speaking sense, the more is more if it's all easy, legit easy, and it needs to be in combination with a couple times a week, purposely going harder.
Yeah. Yeah, completely agree. As we've talked about a lot on the podcast, I think people's easy meters are broken. So I feel like a lot of my job as a coach is actually not to get people to go harder, but to go easier and to stay in the appropriate ranges that were prescribed. There's a certain amount of like, yeah, oh, I felt good on the day, coach. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
most people I'm working with, they're not pros and they're not doing this. They're doing this for fun. So if you have a good day, you feel good and you want to go a little harder, cool. But then know that you might be more tired for the next day, right? And maybe you should swap out the workout. It's really, I yeah, completely agree. I'm trying to think of what's another one for you that you another aha that you've
Yeah.
come around to. No,
So
sorry.
I don't know how much this is like an aha as much. Well, it is an aha, but I don't know if it's like it's not necessarily something that I believed differently before, but maybe just something that I didn't totally understand before, right? And that is the degree to which your baseline health matters in your ability to improve from the training that you do. And that was something that I think I didn't put it all together until I was like in my piece. And again, it was like one of the things where like I had to personally experience this before I was able to like put it all together and go like, okay, like this really matters. But it was like, and then like once I experienced it for myself and understood that, then I was able to see it in different athletes that I was working with. And it's like, okay, if your baseline health, that means like your blood pressure, your just like your lab counts in different ways, I mean, this could be separate. This actually was another one of mine, like your posture, like the way that you move. It's like your baseline health needs to be like strong enough, healthy enough in order for you to adapt to the training that you're doing. And so this would actually couple with another one that I wrote down, which is that I used to believe that just doing the training was all it really took in order to get the benefits and improve from that training. Right. And so those two things kind of go along in the same vein because now my understanding is that it is not doing the training that is as important as recovering from the training and adapting to the training that you're doing. So don't, how do I say, like, don't confuse those two with like doing training versus improving from training. Because and there was something that I read one time from a smart coach. It was Gordo Byrne, actually. So some of you may have followed him. He's been around for decades. And he wrote something along the lines of how people do training that makes them tired and they think that they're improving. And at the time that he wrote that, I was like one of those people. And I was like, but I respected him enough to be like, there's something behind what he's saying, and I want to know what it is. And so like that was my prompt to really like dig into that more. And I think as at the time, like I used to like being tired. Like I thought that being tired was part of it. And I still believe that being tired at times is like an important part of that process. Like if you think that you're going to train for an Ironman and never be tired, well, like you may train in a way that like allows you to finish Ironman, but you're unlikely to perform. Like there is some fatigue that needs to be accumulating, but it's not like this is so nuanced. And this is like with all the things that I'm like the things I used to believe and things I believe now. It's like it's not just like black and white. There's so much gray area in between. So it's like how much fatigue is appropriate fatigue, right? And like training under a high level of fatigue, if you're not recovering from that day to day, like I used to think that if I was really tired and then I banged out another hard session, that I thought I was doing myself a favor in that way. And now I'm like, oh, it's not doing the training that matters. It's recovering from the training that matters. And again, this is one of those things that like when you're sitting in your like training certification courses and you're learning about like like stress plus recovery equals adaptation, and that's where your improvement is, and you can see the whole graph on that, you know. And like but the application of how that works in the real world when we're training is like quit trying to be a hero and just making yourself more tired and thinking that you're doing a good thing. And if your baseline health isn't at a really good level going into a training session, you can still potentially do that session, and you're not going to benefit from doing that session. It's just like being in a hole and continuing to dig. And so I I'm a way bigger advocate now for take care of your baseline health first. Get yourself into a place where when you do the training, you're able to benefit from it. Like that is the key. It's not about just doing the training kind of no matter what. If you're sick, and this was actually another thing, and again, so all of this would go sort of under the same umbrella. And I can even say this right now, like watch me following my own advice. I felt like a head cold was coming on Saturday. Today is Monday. This is my third day in a row of doing nothing other than walking because I have a major head cold. My head is congested. I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. I can't breathe well. My energy levels are low. In the past, without a doubt, I would have trained through this whole thing, feeling miserable, not training well, coughing my lung up afterward, right? And not improving, but believing that I was doing the right thing because I was training and following the plan or whatever. Like now I understand that baseline health is an absolute mandatory part of improving from the training you're doing. And so if you don't have the baseline health part down first, then don't do hard training. You're not benefiting from it. But that doesn't mean don't do easy training, right? So like in some cases, like and this goes back to the intensity factor thing. So like when your health is not in a place where you're likely to benefit from intense training, you might still benefit from super easy training. And it might be that day where, and this is where like HRV, like a lot of this was like I learned when I started learning about heart rate variability. What does that number mean? Like real, and it took me a year or so to like really understand all the nuances of that. Like, and that was measuring myself as well as paying attention to a bunch of my athletes. So I got to measure their HRV and report that in. And like I was learning all about that. And it was like that was the concrete evidence that I needed. They're like, oh, okay. So the big picture is like if we're going after performance, is like we want to be able to do the key training, right? How much of the key training should we do and when should we do it? It's not just willy nilly and do it as much as you can. It's do it when your baseline health is in a place where you're able to benefit from that training. And otherwise, going easy is your better bet that day. So that was like, I don't know, three kind of things all like meshed into one.
Absolutely. And I apologize. Yeah, we had either a delivery truck or a deer, something, because it was a little chaotic here. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
okay. They're acting on their instincts, Mickey. It's okay when
right, I
dogs
know.
bark. Like that's what their instincts like that.
Yeah.
Meant to do that.
Yeah, and it is okay. It's just, I don't know if everyone else wants to hear the barks
Yeah,
because you guys have
yeah.
big barks. But I completely agree with you. I think what I didn't recognize in my own training until very recently, I had like an aha moment, I think, around how much walking I did when I was at kind of peak performance. And I
Hmm.
didn't give that the real, I never give it the weight that it deserved, that it was improving my baseline metabolic function, my, durability, my lower leg durability. I mean, so on top, and I never tracked any of the hikes or walks that I was doing because it was with my dogs, right? And it was just part of my routine that I'd had for the longest time. And that all the training was just on top of it. But I would say in any given week, I was probably still on top of 20-hour training weeks. I was probably walking 5 to 6 hours at least, an hour a
Hmm.
day with my dogs, and very easy letting them sniff, whatever. And sometimes my dogs would run with me, so maybe we wouldn't do as long of a walk. But I would say the amount of walking I did, I think really benefited my metabolic health and my fat burning capabilities. And so now in my coaching protocols, well, one, I mean, that's multiple factors here. Training, so I've always used heart rate, right? And trying to get people to pay attention to their heart rates, not always just going easier or, running at a easier pace to keep your heart rate low, but, looking at what's your heart rate when you're going hard, what's your heart rate when you're going
Hmm.
easy, like looking at that variability, right? And trying to have it be variable.
Yeah.
I think when I was a young coach, I was just looking at that and I wasn't really asking about what else are you doing? Are you walking? What's your diet like?
Yeah.
Because diet plays as we've talked about on their podcast,
Hmm.
huge role in your ability to recover, in your ability
Hmm.
to burn fat for fuel if you are looking to do really long races, Ironman and above, and or if you cannot fuel at a capacity at a carb loading that so for example, I've had some athletes that literally cannot get to the carbohydrate amounts without looking at their baseline nutrition, right, to
Hmm.
increase their ability to burn a little bit more fat, right, to not have to take in the gobs of carbohydrates that they would need if they didn't improve their fat burning, right? So that conversation around like what do you eat, are you eating mostly carbs all day long, right?
Yeah.
There's if you're 20, 25, maybe even mid
Yeah.
30s, maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're then struggling to fuel your Ironman efforts or your ultra efforts, right? Then it's is a huge, a much larger component than what I knew at the time when I was a younger coach. And so I think, ironically, a lot of this knowledge seems to be going to a little bit. It's a little wasted because a lot of my athletes are doing shorter stuff, so it's not as important now. But if any new Ironman athletes come on, I feel
The
more
pendulum is going to swing
prepared.
back, Mickey, like it always
Maybe,
does.
yeah, it does. It does, yeah, it does. And I think in my own journey, it helped. Although I didn't recognize it at the time in my own nutritional. I mean, I always ate fairly high protein. I dabbled in like kind of paleo-esque, but I was never firm in like I eat paleo or I've never done keto, but overall my baseline diet was pretty heavy in like lean proteins and vegetables. And I really only put carbs when I was in big training blocks, like sweet potatoes and stuff. And so
Mhm.
I think it did support my own like metabolic health, and I didn't recognize, but I didn't really recognize. It's just like how I
Yeah.
ate. I didn't recognize it until I started working with some athletes that were having a lot of nutritional issues. And I looked at their baseline, like, what do you eat? I have cereal for breakfast. I have, a scone and a coffee for lunch, and I
Yeah.
have like pasta for dinner. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, so yeah, that's so. Anyways, I agree. But that lows it. So in addition to the nutrition, but I also encourage my athletes to walk a lot more than I ever did. I even put it in their training peaks. Like if today, if you have good energy, you can do an easy math run, right? If your energy is low, I'd prefer you do a walk. You know,
Hmm.
you can walk up to 90 minutes. You can walk up to usually I say you can walk up to however long you have time to walk, right? Like there's no upper limit. Usually people can't walk, 3 hours a day. Right, right. Yeah. 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 So anyways, yeah, that was a big learning, or it still is. And it's a little bit of a struggle, I think, to implement it. I think there's still a lag, even though I try to educate, because it's not hard, right? Like it doesn't feel hard. And so like what was a walk doing, right? Well, yeah, it's actually doing a lot, especially for my athletes that are in their 50s and 60s that, I've seen some poor blood work and their glucose levels are going up, and, so yeah, it matters.
Can I say too, I think
Yeah.
that potentially a misunderstanding there for people who don't understand the benefit of walking and like going easier than they otherwise could. And where's the benefit in that? It may be a lack of understanding or discernment of the differences between metabolic health and cardiovascular health, or like aerobic fitness. So you have like metabolic fitness, cardiovascular fitness, aerobic fitness. I feel like cardiovascular and aerobic are probably, you can intertwine those.
Yeah.
Early on, I thought that metabolic fitness was like same, like that if you had good aerobic or
Right.
cardiovascular fitness, that automatically then metabolic
Mm-hmm.
fitness would be good as well. And it was only like maybe 6 or 7 years ago that I've it was like I think I understood the concept of it before, the concept of metabolic fitness, but it wasn't filed under the tab metabolic fitness in my head. Right.
Yeah,
And then
I can
once I
understand that.
once
Yeah.
I learned that like metabolic fitness and aerobic fitness are not the same
Mm.
thing, they're not necessarily like automatically linked. I was like, wait, what? Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let me learn more about that. And then once I understood that, then you go, yeah, that's why like going easier than you otherwise could much of the time is to your
Hmm.
benefit. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
so people
Right.
who like, so this is what I see people who, and so I'm not on Strava anymore, but I used to be on, were you
Yeah.
ever on Strava or do you never do it?
A couple of years, I deleted
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
last year, I
I
think.
deleted
Yeah.
it too at some point, but like for a while I thought it was fun. Like I liked it. But what was interesting is that when I was on Strava, I did understand metabolic fitness. I did understand like at that time.
Hmm.
And I remember watching people and like, okay, this is me being judgmental wench, and this is just me. Like, I'll share a little secret. But I used to like watch athletes that I knew on Strava overworking, or like I would watch their egos come out on Strava in a way that like they would do a run, and it's 8:40 pace for 5 miles or whatever off the bike, and they would call it easy off the bike, and it's 8:40 pace or whatever. Maybe there was heart rate data, maybe there was no heart rate data, but like either
Hmm.
way, I was like, that athlete like runs 2 hours for a half marathon or a half marathon off the bike, in a 70.3, which is 9 minute pace. So I'm like, if you're running
Hmm.
faster than your
Yeah.
70.3
Oh,
race
yeah.
pace, like
Yeah.
that's not technically easy. But like we're gonna call it easy on Strava to make it seem like this flex of like your your 8:40 pace is easy.
Hmm.
And what was interesting is at the time I remember thinking like they think it's a flex post a run faster than your race pace and call it easy. But I actually watched other athletes, very fast, talented athletes, who were unafraid to post their 11-minute pace run on Strava. And I would be like, that is the flex. Like
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, that is the
Yeah.
flex. Like the athlete who is unafraid to post the 11-minute pace run on Strava and then go do the race and race at 7 something pace. Right. I'm like, that's the flex right there. Is it like that athlete wasn't afraid? And I used to watch, and it would be kind of fun for me to play it out, like, because I'd watch sort of an athlete train over, a couple months, and we're all going to do the same race or whatever. And like, let's just see. I'm like super curious because like they certainly ran fast all through training. Like, I'm curious
Right.
to see how that pans out on race day, and like 100% across the board. It's like, oh, I don't know what happened.
Doesn't translate.
There was always something that happened on the run,
Oh, yeah.
where like they did
Yeah.
not run 140 off the bike. And
Yeah.
so you're like,
I,
um, is
I,
interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I will say that's something that my mind has not changed about, right? In terms of the Strava and like the public posting all your training to a public platform. When that came about, I was already, it was probably, I don't even know when Strava came about, but I wasn't on it for years. Most of when I was performing at my best was not on Strava. I think it was pretty new at that time. I investigated it, because all my athletes were on it. I'm like, oh, you got to get on Strava. Okay, fine. So I did it, and I was kind of in the downslope of like not doing as much training anymore anyways. So it's kind of like, whatever. I was maybe on there for a year and a half. I didn't care. Like I didn't sometimes I would use it to post photos of my dogs who are running with me. I thought it was like nice for me to have because I had a record because I can't put photos on my training peaks, right? For when I do runs with my dogs. That was its only benefit. I think for the most part, like 99% of the time, it's damaging to people's training, their mindset, their mental
Hmm.
health. Like I'm sorry, like having your data public for 99% of the people, right? Like it is not a good thing because, you're essentially every day showing up and competing against other people in a non-race. Like I don't understand. Yeah, I deleted it. I don't have any, I will never be back on there. It was ridiculous. And
Yeah,
I
I'll
encourage,
never go back
I
on it
think,
either.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
haven't
I
changed my
liked it
mind
for a
about that.
time. Wait, I'll tell you what I like because I do think so. I'm less black and white, right? So I'm like I'm gray zone. I see nuance, and so I'm like I can see in some cases where Strava is beneficial for some athletes in some circumstances. And I will say that like for me during COVID.
The connection.
Like Strava, yeah, like Strava was an important part of like training happiness during COVID.
Mhm.
Like I enjoyed putting my stuff on Strava. I enjoyed at time like, and then I would find segments. It definitely motivated me to like work hard in certain sections, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I would go find segments, and maybe it's different because like you're in Colorado, but like here in Hawaii, our segments are kind of soft. You know, like a lot of them are like that's doable. Like I can go do that, or I can, you know, and so like I would have fun like chipping away and like trying to get the fastest time. I would wait for like wind patterns, and so like it taught me to be like pretty strategic at times. And I would go out and I would know where segments were, and I was highly motivated to work really hard and get after them. But I also at times would go out and like try to ride really easy and know that I'm not gonna get any segments. I will say that Strava completely changed the way that my brain interpreted every workout I did. Like every workout was like largely, what are other people going to think about this? Right? Like, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to be posted publicly and I knew people were going to see it, which at times was a good, like on the day that I wanted to work hard, it was good because I worked as hard as I like needed or wanted to because I knew it was going to be public. But there were other times where I remember like, oh, this is a funny story. So there was a guy that moved in, like he had been somewhere else, like he'd lived in a neighboring town, but then like he moved into my town, and he was like a Strava, like, and this guy was like lived for Strava, right? Of course, he like, anyway, I'll stop. He lived for Strava. He started making segments out of all of my like easy run routes, right? So like he, you know, because like somebody can make segments, you can like do a route and then come home and like create a segment on the thing. And I was so frustrated. That's actually the thing that made me leave Strava, was that like I had some
Someone wanted to
easy run
race you.
routes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I had easy run routes that were like my easy run routes, and I knew that they weren't even segments, right? So while the whole like run would show up on Strava, like the segments like up that hill or whatever, like weren't going to show up individually, which for me, like it felt like, I don't know, like there was something, it was like on my easy run days, like I didn't want to be judged on what the pace was that day. When all of my easy run, like literally almost every road in my town became a segment of some sort because this
No.
guy moved in and he made them all segments. And I was like, I think that's it then. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to do this anymore. And then like the feeling of relief that I had when I went out and was able to just train however I wanted every day. And what I realized was that like I don't actually need kudos. I don't need people to know or see what I'm doing all the time in order for me to be motivated. Although I will say, for some athletes, if they're the kind that like they really thrive on the community aspect of it, like maybe in that case, like Strava for them is helpful. Like if they weren't putting the run on Strava and then it doesn't get done,
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like, hey, there's probably something underlying there to work on.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
I
a
would say
mindset
that.
thing underneath there to work on. But there just may be times where it's like Strava can be fun for somebody with like a healthy ego.
Right.
I see where and how it can be an okay app and even a beneficial app for some people. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think for
Yeah.
the vast majority of us, it's probably not healthy or
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you're right. There are probably people that can use it in a healthy way and it is helpful for them. Well, yeah, this is getting off the topic, but like the whole I do it for the community. I think a lot of people are actually doing it for the competition and saying they're doing it for the community in Strava or in group rides or in group
Mm.
anything. Like I think there is a that is an and it's inherently human thing, or maybe it's in our culture. I don't know. Right. And
It
we,
might be because I feel like here in
yeah,
Hawaii, I think that the group thing is, it genuinely is group thing. And I'm not, I mean, they do, like, there are some groups that will compete, you know what I mean? Like, that's natural and like human nature. But like, I think here, there's a lot of people who really just
yeah.
genuinely like
It's
want to be in
Hawaii.
community and like training groups. So
Yeah.
Hawaii's a different like place.
Hawaii's got a different vibe, but very chill. I would say leaving Boulder County or living in Boulder County as long as I did.
Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
there's most of it is you're showing up to race every day in the group. And I have athletes that ride groups that, I mean, every Training Peaks upload, it's like this person that, I mean, it's always a dynamic of like who's riding well,
Hmm.
who's right, how am I riding in comparison to that person? It's like, oh my God. Like if you're doing it for the community, what conversations did you have? Like Give me
Hmm.
something else other than like the judgment that is coming from this group ride, right? That you say you love so much. But what I see is judgment. I see judgment on I didn't ride as well as Johnny. Like I don't, oh my God. So anyways,
Yeah.
I'm not a group worker outer or never have been. So anyways,
Yeah.
okay. We have got a couple, I think we have a few more minutes. We might need to do a whole nother part two of this, but do you have any other
There's so many.
yeah.
Let's see that. Okay. So here's one that I wrote. I used to believe that mindset work and having a positive mindset was nothing more than magical thinking, and
Mm,
that the only thing that really mattered was your actual level of fitness. And it was
mm-hmm,
along the lines of like and I was very firm on this. Like I cannot just like positive think my way into running 8 minute pace, on this training day, because like I'm just going to visualize it and I'm going to think about it. I'm going to make it because I imagined it could happen. I'm just going to be really positive thinking. Like if my body physically couldn't do it, then like just believing that I could was not the way. And that's what I thought mindset work was. And so when that's what I thought mindset work was, I was not interested in people that were promoting mindset work, right?
gotcha. Yeah.
And so while I still don't believe that you can just magically think or believe your way into a good performance, the difference now is that I understand what mindset work actually is and like
Mm-hmm,
how it actually helps us. And it's not just I'm going to believe my way into a better performance on race day, right?
mm-hmm,
So like now my like belief or understanding around this is that mindset work allows us to examine our thoughts, to decide which ones to follow and which ones to let go of, to be objective about what kind of thoughts lead me to the actions that lead me to the type of
mm-hmm.
training that I need to do, which then leads itself to the results, right? So it's like my initial belief about mindset work or positive magical positive thinking or whatever was that it went from like point A to point Z, and it was just like this magical leap across. And now what I see is it's like being able to examine your thoughts and think about your thinking and think about the way you're talking to yourself and examine like, is that helpful for me or not? Is there another way I can like talk to myself in that way, or like look for the positive thing here? And like when I do that, then what is my next step? And then like when the
Mm-hmm.
next step is the next best step, that's not like magically here's my race pace, it's coming very easily. It's that it's this is the next step, right? And so I think that my whole belief around mindset work, what it is, what it isn't, how it works for us, has evolved vastly. And like now I understand it in a way that I'm like, it's absolutely imperative.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
it's not is what I used to think it was. And it still isn't that. Right. But like,
Right.
I think I just
Right.
lumped it all together, and I would kind of roll my eyes at anybody who was like, you have to believe and you have to, work with your brain and blah, blah. And now it's like, and this is like neuroscience. Like we have data
Mm-hmm.
on like how your brain works and functions, and like why you believe what you believe, and how you were taught that a long time ago, and how you never examined it to like think about it in a more critical way and change your belief on that because that belief is not actually working for you anymore. And like people who are unable to make that leap and say, I used to believe this thing, but I don't anymore. Like they're the stuck people who are like stuck. That's it. Like you're stuck there. And the stuckness starts with your mind. I think too, like a new understanding that I have that I didn't have when I was a new coach is the degree to which like your mind informs your body and your body
Mm-hmm.
informs your mind. And it's a
Yeah.
it's a like a cycle that absolutely goes both ways, right? So there's times when your body, like, and this is a perfect example, like right now, like my body is fighting a virus, my immune system is fighting a virus, and like my motivation to swim is like zero. Like I don't have any desire to go get in that water. It's cold. Like I don't feel good. I don't want to be sluggish. And I'm like, this is a good example of like my body is informing my mind and my motivation is in the gutter because my body has a virus. I'm at a place where I'm aware enough to understand that like that's what's going on. and I respect myself enough to honor what my body is saying, and I'm not going to go drill myself into a hole to like support my ego in that way and like make myself train because like that means I'm a tough person. Like, no, what I want to do is like wait until I'm in a good, healthy, position. My body feels good. And I know, like, again, I've paid enough attention to how my brain works. When my body's in a good place, I'm hyper motivated. I can't
Hmm.
wait to go do the thing. So like when you're not feeling motivated, it can be a really good thing to like look at the health of your body, right? Like it can
Yeah.
be that the motivation is not there because your body is not in a place where training makes sense for you right now. And so rather than beating yourself up about the fact that you don't have any motivation, like you might look deeper into that and be like, what's going on in my body that is sapping my motivation? Like maybe I need more sleep. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
fuel myself better. Like maybe I'm lacking in this essential nutrient or micronutrient.
Hmm.
Like I don't have, like maybe like my back hurts because like I've been overdoing things or I've been ignoring, this aspect of my health for so long. And so like then finally like my back went out because my body was like, it just needs rest. And my brain, like it needed to do something to make my brain stop trying to push me in that way.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
like I think
Yeah.
that when you're feeling, and then what's important too then is to know kind of how your brain usually is, because I think for different people, right, like again nuance, like it's going to function differently. So if I know that when I'm in a good place and my body is healthy and vibrant, like my motivation to train is through the roof and it's high, and I like training, I like working hard, I like the thing. So when my brain isn't like that, I need to go look at what's going on in my body because like there's something happening there. But it also can be the case where other people like I feel like this is less common, but it is, there are people like this, so we have to mention it, that their motivation is lacking because they don't really believe in themselves strongly. Like they don't really believe they can achieve the goal, or they don't believe they deserve to achieve the goal, right? I have athletes currently right now who are in that boat. So like my job with them is to be like, help you believe that you can do it, that you deserve to do it, that you have earned the right to feel good in your workouts. So all that, the mind body connection is nuanced
Yeah.
and it's
It's
critical. Like it's
it is. It is.
so important, and understanding like your unique makeup in that way um, is, yeah, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was a young coach, I heavily focused like pre-race and prep work on the data. Like this is what the numbers, this is what you how you'll execute. And to a certain degree, I was using part of that as I'm a scientist, right? And I'm very heavily into the data. But I think I was also using personal experience. Like for in my racing experience, I barely remember what I thought. I'm sure I did have thoughts in a race, but like, I mean, I was just like, I'm in the zone. Like, I am problem solving. I'm looking at the data, sticking to the plan. I'm fueling, and I could do that for 12, 10:30 to 11 to 12 hours, no problem. No boredness, no, I mean, I
Yeah,
literally like I have a whole host of like negativity, thoughts, judgments, conversations in my head going on in every other arena of my life, but when I race, like it's on, right? Like I'm there, I'm 110% in the moment, and I never realized that that's not common. That's not like the normal for most people. And so I had to learn, right, like how to manage, this whole host of conversation and negativity, and that I don't have a lot of I have experience with it. Obviously I'm no like Buddha. When I soccer, all my athletic history, when it's game time, like I'm 100%, like there's no can I do this? Can I not do this? I'm not good enough. I mean, it's like literally like you need to get to the line, the finish line as fast as possible. What do you have to do to do it? Right. And then of course, when I crossed the line, then there was a whole host of like, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. And whatever. That's when I do allow it to come in. And some of that is fine. Like it's being objective about how the build went, whatever. So as a new coach, I definitely didn't focus hardly at all on the mindset component because I didn't realize how much it played into most people's race experiences. Oh, it's almost more important than the data. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, yeah, like you could have athletes, if you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe that you're capable of, following the plan to whatever, your best ability, then that's almost more, it is more important than all the training that you did.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
training should help inform you and give you some confidence, but if you really fundamentally believe you're not capable, then I'd say don't even show up to the start line, right? You got to work on that component before giving yourself
Yeah.
a chance, right? So
Have you,
yeah.
one of the, my like, my standard reflection questions for the athletes that are willing to like look at their race objectively after it's over. But one of the questions is, what were you thinking about and what were you telling yourself during the race? I mean, that is a fascinating question because like I remember very specifically, this is years ago, but like doing one of the North Shore swim races. And like it was a race that like I did that race and I had several athletes that did that race. And then afterward, like one of the athletes, when she was answering that question, like what were you thinking about? What were you telling yourself during the race? And she was like, I was thinking about like, my son was going off to college and I was thinking about this. And I mean, she like literally like named all these things about like where her head was at, all the things she was thinking about during the swim race. And I saw the
Mhm.
turtle and then, I was looking at the reef and it was pretty. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was like, whose feet should I be on? How fast does my tempo need to be on? To stay on these feet. You just stay on these feet. You know what I mean? I'm like, I literally thought about
Yeah, yeah,
nothing but staying on the feet, making sure we were on the right line, right? Like telling myself that I'm fine. I can do this. I can stay on the feet, stay on the feet, stay on the feet, stay on the feet, run up the beach. Like that was the end.
yeah,
Like, and I was like, you thought about all that? And I'm like, oh my God, well, no wonder it took you so long to do. Like you weren't
yeah,
focused on what you're doing in the moment. That was a huge aha for me that like not everybody
right,
is
is
focused on what they're
focus,
doing
yeah,
while they're racing. Like she was largely, because I asked her about that and she's like, no, I think that works better for me. Like I'm trying to distract myself from what I'm doing.
yeah,
And
and
she
that's
thought it was a good thing to do. But like talk about like I used to believe and I currently believe. So I mean, it was genuinely her belief
hmm
that
hmm
she was better off and her best races came if she
when
distracted her
she's
brain
distracted.
and started thinking about her kids while she's doing an ocean swim race. Like she thought that was the
That's
best
a
thing. And it's like, well, maybe let's examine that and see. Like, let's try again then. Next time we have another race in 2 weeks. Like, let's try again and see if next
hmm
time, if you focus and think about this. Although I think that that's something that you have to largely train and like learn how to. Like, I
yeah,
don't think that
yeah,
that's a thing that you can just be like, I'm just going to decide to do this. Like, I think that
right. It
it needs
is,
to. You
yeah.
got to practice that in training.
Yeah, yeah, you do. Well, and there's this idea of like the dissociation. I mean, I don't know if it's human nature again, uh, or maybe it's a variation in the human population that if we don't like pain, right? Whether it's emotional pain, if it's physical
Mm-hmm.
pain, if it's, and so when you're racing, there's a lot of there could be a lot of physical, like you are actually going at your limit, so it's uncomfortable, or you are judging prematurely a lot of times, right? Like the outcome of the race and not meeting your expectations. So automatically people, oh, if I'm not running this or swimming this, like I'm not going to meet my goals. So therefore what, I suck or whatever it might be. So there's emotional pain. So I can understand how some people would choose to then try to think about something else, right? Just reduce the pain, but that's reducing the experience, right? Like racing is this, right? Like racing
Yeah.
is that's part of the experience. I don't but there's also a subset of the culture, right, that just, again, community, fun, stay healthy. And so I've also I think this is an aha, or a like a how I've evolved in my thinking. It's like the way I show up and race and the way I show up to my training is not how everyone else does it. And
Yeah.
I have to understand that, and I have to, acknowledge that if I want to try, I have to know I have to meet them kind of where they are, like hope to help them. And this is maybe going back to, I can't help everyone. And so some people are so far different from either my coaching philosophy or my, no, my either known experience, personal experience, or my experience with the athletes that I've worked with to say, maybe I'm not the best fit for you. Right. But yeah, I think that's been, because I mean, I know I'm an intense person. I was an intense racer. I was an intense athlete, and not everyone is like that. I've tried to recognize that, but I think I do a better job now than when I was younger, right? Or a
Hmm.
younger coach, just having more experience with different types of people and why they're doing this, right? And so, yeah. So for what it's worth, I
So
guess,
that's probably a
yeah.
good place to like wrap this up. And if we were to like summarize, like, and I came to this conclusion when I was reflecting for this podcast about the things that I've changed my mind on, and that if there's like a through line or like a thread that connects all these things, it's largely along the lines of that there's a lot more gray area and there's nuance to a lot of things where it's
Hmm.
like there's
Yeah.
something that you believe that this is the case, but knowing that there are certain circumstances or different people or different areas where it's like, well, that makes sense, but it works also to like shift in this way. And then largely I more and more I am I'm trying to think of like the most diplomatic way to say this. Maybe there's not one, but it's along the lines of like people who are presented with evidence and refuse to change their mind in the face of new evidence, or even to like nuance and shift and see that like maybe in like you're right in that circumstance, and there's other people who have other experiences and circumstances, and therefore their belief and understanding or approach is different. People who can't realize that, I'm like, I don't think that those people are good for me to be around, right?
Hmm.
And they're not good. So if we're talking about like who can you not coach, it'd be like, well, yeah, that's a person. Like if you don't, like if you're like this is it, and I am sure. And the other thing, there was something I was reading. It was like along the lines of like the people who already know everything, like they're largely stuck at like that is, they're at their capacity of how
Hmm.
good they're going to be in whatever area it is that they already know everything. Like, and so the person who comes across with like, I have so much confidence, I know everything already, like they're closed minded to learning more. Like there's no more progress to be made with that person in whatever area where they are already the expert. And so, and this is the case, like the people who are continue to be curious, continue to ask questions, continue to probe, continue to look for patterns, like they're the ones that are like going to push the edges and continue to improve versus the one that comes across and like you already know everything. Well, that's it. Like you're not teachable. So like you're not an athlete that should be coached by anyone, and maybe shouldn't actually be coaching anyone either. And I can see how
Yeah.
some athletes might be like drawn toward coaches who present like as if they know everything already. And it's like
Yeah.
if you know everything already, then you have like largely stopped learning. And if you've stopped
Yeah.
learning, I
Yeah.
fear for that situation. I will
Yeah.
just say
I
never
agree.
stop learning.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And I reserve the right to change my mind on any of the things I said today. If
Exactly.
evidence comes at me, I will change my mind and I will not apologize for it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I will also add, I think it's also completely, it can be a sign of wisdom, intelligence, a growth mindset when a coach especially says, I don't know, right? Let
Mhm.
me see if I can figure that out or help you, right? And in the coaching space, I feel like there's not enough of that, right? Because, all over coaches, influencers on the socials, right? It's like, I have the answer for you, buy my program instead of, whatever. Yeah. So I
And
think
largely that works, which is really unfortunate, right? And
it
so I
is.
think that
Yeah.
like the people who come across with that message, they make a lot more money than you and I do. But
I
like
know. I know.
I don't want to make money in that way. I want to do it like in an authentic way
Yeah,
that feels right to me.
exactly.
So if I end up with working with fewer athletes because I'm not making promises that I can't keep, that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Cool. All right. Well, thanks,
All right.
Michelle. We will figure out a topic for next time. So thanks all for
Yeah.
joining. We'll see you next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.